Previously on Fabulous.
So if you're a woman listening to me out there, I want to encourage you that we are born smart, and so whatever you put your mind at, you can achieve and even do better.
I'm very excited to be sitting here with my sister Nanama Eningopundia. We've been friends for what, about 17 or 18 years now. So now we don't call ourselves friends, we call ourselves sisters, and I'm sure some of that conversation and the reasons why will come up as we go along. But for now, we're going to talk about everything. So we're going to take a journey through her life, especially focusing on mother and her role as a mom, and also as a business owner, also as an executive. So basically, to support all of you who are watching, who are listening, to know that we're all on a journey. And that journey has all these transitions, and in between all the transitions are all the joys and the pain that we seek to embrace and to see what we can do, turn them into purpose and support you with that. So that's all the conversation we're going to have today. So before we go on, would like Nana to introduce herself a little bit to you, those of you who do not know her, because if I start, I think that'll be all the conversation. So Nana, you're welcome.
Thank you. So the reason why I have both my maiden and my marital name is that I want to connect with both my past and my future.
I like
so that's
that.
why I combined all of them, and that's all me. So that's why I have such a long name, but I like it. So where do I start from? So I have a business. I run a business, Project Alternatives Limited. I also work as a policy advisor to the John A. Kufuor Foundation. And then I'm a PhD candidate also. And I'm a mother of 3, of course, a wife. And then I have parents, both my in-laws and my own parents, my biological parents, my friends and other networks. So I have all of these hats that I put on at different times in my life. And it's all that's all me. All the things that I do.
How do you juggle all of it? Because I think that's what a lot of people, there's a lot of talk about work-life balance even before we get into all the mothering part. How do you juggle all of it?
I am a super planner. So I schedule and I organize. Otherwise my life, I can't work like that. Even I schedule my rest times. So I schedule from this time to that time I'm going to be resting, or I'm going to have a Sabbath. What I also try to do is to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. Try not to work on Sundays. But I think I do a lot of planning and scheduling, and that's what keeps me prioritizing, planning, scheduling. Yeah, and of course, what I also try to do is to front load my assignments. So if I have, like now I'm coordinating some field work, it's supposed to be done in June. So I'm planning to finish by middle of May.
Wonderful.
And then I have a buffer at the end of that period. So if something goes wrong, then you're not panicking. So I front load a lot of my work so that I have that buffer. And then I also prioritize. So there are certain things. So child is sick. That's one, you drop everything and you attend to it. But other than that, which timelines are ahead, which ones can you also negotiate? So sometimes you have to negotiate your timelines. Sometimes there are others that if you are bidding for a contract, for example, you can negotiate
There's
that.
a deadline, yeah.
There's a deadline. So you have to look at which one comes first, which ones can you negotiate. So if you already have a contract, you can negotiate, submission date for a report. But if it's a bid, like I said, then it's a deadline. So prioritize, schedule, leave a buffer zone, and then, also when make room for emergencies,
I like that, because there are a lot of people who say that I plan and it doesn't happen. So why even bother? What would you say to people like that?
I think if you are working with no plan at all, then you should bother.
But you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yes. This morning, for example, I planned to have a meeting at 9. before this session. And then the meeting didn't come on because, well, the person was in traffic and whatever. But then this session comes on. And so what you do basically is to reschedule those plans. So then I moved that one to an hour later. And then because I also do the buffer zones, when there's a problem, you can push something into the buffer.
Exactly.
Yeah, so planning is a must if you have to juggle work, life, motherhood. I mean, all of that, you have to plan.
There's something you said I want to hop on before we move on, and it's the schedule and rest time. One of the things I notice even about myself is that if I don't schedule eating, even the times when I eat, then I don't eat.
Yeah.
So I just find myself going, and then I notice when I start putting on weight, then I'm like, I've missed my meal times. So it's important to have that. So basically, essentially, you're doing a 24-hour calendar schedule, which is very helpful for people to know. So you're not just saying that I work for 8 hours and I'm scheduling myself for 8 hours. Between the 8 hours, there's a lot to do. Outside of those 8 hours, there's a lot to do, and everything must be scheduled.
Yeah.
And then you leave room also for eventualities, as they call it. So that's very helpful. I met you about 17 years ago. Wow, that sounds so, it makes me sound so old, even though I don't feel old. But we were all, and interestingly, this is actually an interesting conversation because we met at, it was a, what would we even call it? A hospital for fertility and childbirth. So we were all going through our journeys of childbirth, or actually even beginning the process of childbirth, and we met, and we've been literally sisters forever. So what I know for you, especially when you're planning, there's a lot that goes into that particular space. Talk to us a little bit about your journey of motherhood. Where does it start for you, or where did it start for you? Where are you now?
Where do I begin? Actually, I think it was my journey into parenthood that led me into PhD, to doing a PhD. But let me start from the beginning of the motherhood journey. So when we met, I had just lost a baby, and it was a painful process, and I wasn't even sure whether I was crying because of the one I had lost, or whether I was just mourning for not having one at the time. And so I went through a painful process, and I had to deal with the fact that, I think when I conceived was when I realized it's not everybody who will be a mother. I can also, biological mother, let me be specific. I can also be mother to other people, and I can also do other things impactful with my life. And so when I got to that place, I think my whole system was probably more relaxed. So somehow the first baby came. And then after I had the first baby, my miracle, I always call him, then I had some more kids. But I then thought, if you are going to have 3 kids, you are going to contribute 3 souls, 3 members of society, you might as well do a very good job at it. And so then I started thinking, how do you do a good job? And actually, that was the curiosity that also led me into going back to school. Because originally, I have a science background, my BSc and MSc. And then I thought, okay, how do I become a good parent? And how do I contribute this knowledge to other people who are also struggling like myself? What is good parenting? And so it led me into that space. Motherhood has been tough with work. I have all these hats I wear, like I said. At some point, I was working in 4 countries, and then we had a head office in a different country. So sometimes when I'm traveling, I'll pack 2 suitcases because I'll arrive in Ghana on Friday, then I have to leave on Sunday for another country. And it was painful. You see, my voice is even shaking as I'm talking about it, right? And they were like, Mommy, but you just came. Why are you going back again? And Mommy, you're not spending time with us. It's a painful space to be in. Trying to balance motherhood and being a good mother and home.
Yeah.
I'll pick the PhD later, but let me come to the home and motherhood at the home. What I realized is that I need to be fully present when I'm home. So sometimes I'll fly in from the airport. Sometimes it depends. If it's not a very long trip, if it's like a 3-4 day, I park my car at the
Airport.
airport, and then I pick them from school, and then we do something together. Sometimes we go to like maybe the botanical gardens, just be there, and just talk to them about school, what happened in my absence. So be fully present. And another thing I do when they come to me, even when I'm on my phone, I drop it, and then I look at them so that they realize that I'm with them. So
they're more important.
Fully present, fully present when I'm home. And then when I'm away, I kind of just block everything out.
At that point, you're away.
Yes, and then I pray. I pray for them because there's nothing I can do about it. So I pray more for them when they are not with me. Of course, I pray for them when they are with me, but I think I pray more when they are not with me. And we do things together and catch up, cooking, learning moments and all of that. So we find a way to mix the work. And sometimes I take them on my trips. So if I'm going to do training, I go with one of them or something like that. So
the two things involved. I want to talk about, like follow-ups on this, and if you don't want to go there, it's okay. But one is for somebody who's listening, who is struggling with childbirth or who has lost a child and hasn't arrived at a place of peace, what would you support them with? And I'm only doing this because I know you help others to do that. So
it's painful. I think first of all you need to acknowledge where you are. Acknowledge the fact that you're in pain. And I remember those times I would say, God, I thank you, but I know you know that I am struggling with this. So through the tears, I'm grateful. And I think being grateful for even that pain is the beginning to the healing. I like I said, I think for a while I was so hurt. I was struggling. So I think my whole body chemistry was not even allowing conception. So I needed to arrive at a place.
There's actually a whole book called Your Body Keeps a Score.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a whole book. I don't remember the author, but there's a whole book about your body keeping score. So sometimes, and you and I talk about these sometimes, but you think I'm not upset, I don't feel stressed, but your body tells you otherwise.
Yes.
So it's
and then you start having all these tension headaches and all of that. But like I said, you need to acknowledge it. A lot of the times we're in denial. I remember that after it happened, a few weeks or about a week or two after, somebody I was pregnant with had their baby, and I was going to go for the outdooring.
Because you were almost at full time.
Yes, so I had people, we were all pregnant together and we were going to have, And how do you deal with it? You are happy for your friend, but you're sad for yourself. And so you need to acknowledge, okay, the pain I'm in now is not because your friend has had a child. You are sad because you don't have one. And you need to acknowledge that this is what is going on with me. And then you start that journey of gratitude. It feels like we are in this forest. It has rained, and you need to make fire, and everything is wet. And that's how difficult it is to be grateful in that space. So, but you need to start. Otherwise, you can't get out of that space, and then you sink into a depression. For me, I had to speak with a counselor for some time. And then I also started that gratitude. I actually had started a session on gratitude. Just being grateful every single day for how many days? I don't know, 20, almost a month. It was intentional. I wake up and I say a prayer and I'm grateful. I don't know how other people connect with their spirituality, but it's really that sense of being grateful. So you are grateful for that day. You are grateful for the pain. And then I realized that with time, the pain was going. The pain was going. And even though I still was not pregnant or didn't have a child, I wasn't as hurt and I was able to live normally. You know, at some point you'll be thinking, "Well, how can anybody even think about anything apart from babies? You know, like your whole body, everything is about
It's
babies.
wired.
Why is someone not thinking about it?"
Mm.
And so you need to get out of that space. And that is the way out is gratitude, acknowledging your pain and intentionally being grateful day in, day out until you find that gratitude melts that pain away. Yeah, that's what worked for me.
Wonderful. Let's a follow up on that is, how did you receive help? You talked about a counselor, but you've also talked about the fact that you have both your parents and your in-laws. How did you receive help from your extended family? Because there's some people who at that point in time, they don't even want to see their spouses. So what does that look like? Just briefly, for since we're just helping people, just briefly, what does that look like? How do you even reach out for the help?
Yeah.
Or even let them know that you're not ready for that kind of help?
I think your parents, your loved ones, your spouse, they are all trying to help in a way they know how best to. And sometimes that way might not be what you need.
Yeah.
Because they're also emotionally invested. And sometimes even the extended family could be the source of the pain. Because I remember some other family members were, this is our family, we are not like that, you know, when we get married, we have kids immediately. So what's happening? People, you like school too much. You won't settle down and have babies.
Yeah, they are cautious school.
Yes. So sometimes that could be the source of the pain. And they are close to you. Of course, your mom, your dad, they understand. But there are also other family members who are finding ways to support you. But what the help they are offering is not what you need at the time. So what you do, and I think probably that was how come I reached out to someone else apart from them. This person was more neutral and was not vested in that baby we had lost. So it was easier for me to open up. And I think it's good for us to do that if we have the option. Or we could use our spouses if we can bear to look at them and discuss it with them. But I think you could also do that with friends. If you know that we have friends for different things, right?
Yes,
you
yes,
have
yes.
those
People
you can,
come into our lives for different reasons.
yes. So looking at the kind of friend that can support you if you can't afford a counselor, for example, or something. Or sometimes the religious spaces also help, but they also come with a little bit of baggage sometimes. So I think it's really looking at who will be able to support you in a neutral space and you can open up to. And for me, it took like a couple of sleepless nights for me to arrive at I need help. Because I would go to bed and I can't sleep and it will be morning and I haven't slept. And it takes a lot of, I think probably sometimes for me it was like, okay, you crash, you're at your wit's end and then you say, okay, now I need help to do that. Yeah. So basically I sought help.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
I started
Now that
moving.
we're talking about support systems and help, how did you seek help going through working in 4 different countries, having to travel, leaving the children? What was that support system for you?
I would say my mom was very supportive in terms of like helping out with the home. You know, kids always love their grandmas and all of that. So I think we should learn to let them in. They have their ways of raising us up. Sometimes we don't agree with all the things they do. And similarly, your children won't also agree with
what you
your
do.
parents and stuff, right? So I think that we should let them in. And sometimes, especially for those of us who started out with precious babies.
Yeah.
You
They're
want,
much wanted babies.
yes, yes. You want to do everything perfectly. And you think, no, this way of doing things is not right. It won't kill the children.
Yeah.
The children will not die if grandma decides to drop some bottled water or something like that. They will not die. Their immune system will get stronger. So we need to learn that we need that help. You don't have to be the super mom. And you know, when I hear people saying, "Oh, this person is a super mom,"
You cringe.
I cringe because it means that you're dying inside. For me, I tried. It didn't help out. So you get into a space where you can't do it all alone. So allow people in. I mean, of course, there are certain things you need to protect the children from. You have to be careful about that.
Absolutely.
But I think that if that cup drops on the floor and the child picks it up and they just rinse it, you don't have to sterilize for 1 hour. I mean, I used to do all of that, and if they do it for 15 minutes, I don't know why they should do it for 15 minutes. They have to do
As
it
for
for
the
an
first
hour.
children, they really suffer. I think they're victims and they're traumatized by their parents because every little. Now, some people don't even allow their children to crawl on the floor. They have to crawl on the bed.
Dirty.
Like, really. Yeah, but we understand because we've all gone through it. I didn't lose a child, but I had a very traumatic pregnancy as well, which is what made us meet in the first place anyway. So I do appreciate and honor that you'd share that with our audience because I know it would uplift somebody. So essentially, in this conversation so far, we're looking at Nanama's journey through her life, her executive positioning, her life as we are not really looking at spouses today, but I'm sure it will come up at some point. It has come up already in the fact that sometimes you try and look at your husband and still go through and try and narrate the pain you're going through to him. Somebody must hear. I think sometimes, actually, speaking of that, sometimes we forget that they're also going through some level of pain.
Yeah.
We have the physical pain, and we think they should know, they should support you in a particular way, not realizing that because they don't feel it physically, their pain is different. But we don't appreciate it because we don't even know it at that point. So people must even learn to realize that, look, we're all in different spaces here. Your head may hurt, my nose may hurt. It's still pain. But within that pain, how do we come together and still resolve?
Yeah. I think it's an important issue that you have raised because, we are living in this very patriarchal society and this Bemensu narrative. So if you're a man, you shouldn't express pain. And I think a lot of men are dealing with a lot.
Especially today.
Yes, and they are unable to voice it out because Bemensu. And so it's also tough on them when it comes to the child loss. They also have their issues they're dealing with.
Yeah.
They have to work related. I mean, a lot of things that they have to pull through and show their masculinity and all of that. Sometimes it's toxic, but that's what society expects of them. I think it's something you have to pick up separately because it's a huge area that we can't cover today. So there's a lot of that, and I think as mothers also, not just because when you've lost a child, but also as a mother, you should recognize that your spouse also is struggling with being a parent. He has to provide by our societal norms. Father the provider, mother the caregiver. So they struggle when they are unable to do that. They can't show you because daddy should have money, and the kids, they come in with all manner of requests. So I think that we should also begin to appreciate the spaces the men are in and help them out. We tend to have this narrative of, as for your father, he's not doing anything. They are doing a lot, and we should talk to them. And also help them out in those dark areas when they get there.
This is very useful conversation, and I would like for you to take a moment to first subscribe, to share this information, because we want to heal together. Our collective consciousness brings us all these experiences that we're going through, those we like, those that we do not like. So do take a moment to subscribe, to share, to even hit the notification button so you never miss an upload. In addition to that, do share your own stories for people who are coming in and sharing, to know that they're not alone. They're in this together. That support, as you can tell, is very, very helpful to many people. Thank you.
Next on Famlo.
I think the point I'm making is that we should always step back and look at, who is my child?
Outside of me,
what do they want to do? And especially when they start getting to the teenage years and they start finding themselves, and then if you are not careful, that's when you start knocking heads, because then you become aware of this separate being who is not part of you, who is trying to find themselves. And then if you are not careful, then the horns will start locking and then you have all of that conflict.